Okay, as we discussed, in today's class, we'll be looking into collection framework in Java. I'll try to put the concepts in a simple manner. So just try to understand in what scenarios you can implement these concepts, and what is the basic concept behind these things, like in using these collections or collection framework objects. Just try to understand the scenarios. Okay, now means uh, I hope everyone understood, like even in the previous class we were looking into some diagram which shows like a collection framework. So again I'm just going to reiterate the same stuff and explain it once again. So there are two things that we will be looking here. One is collections and the other one is collection. And as you all know, collections is a class and collection is an interface. Okay, so the easiest way to remember is collections starts with C and ends with S. The same way class starts with C and ends with S. So collections is a class in Java, but what exactly is present in that class we will see later. The same way collection is an interface in Java. So what exactly is present in this we will see later. But the first thing here is we'll be looking into a collection interface today, and the objects, the children of this collection interface. Okay, and the first thing, why exactly the collections framework and why do we use these objects? As we already discussed, the first thing that I would like to say is, like if I want to store a value, a variable value, maybe the simplest way that I can do is, like if I want to store a value in a variable of type int, then I can say something like int x equal to some 10 or some value. I'm storing that value. If I want to store multiple values, I can create n number of variables. But maintaining this n number of variables will be a tedious task. So instead of creating multiple variables like int x equal to 10, int y equal to 20, z equal to 30, like that, instead of creating multiple variables, all we do is we'll try to create an array which can store the n number of values for us. If I want to store 5 values of type int, then I say I'll try to create an array of type int and say that I need 5 storage locations where I can store all these int values. And the restriction with this array is, using an array we can store data only of type int. Why? Because this specific array is declared of type int. So arrays can store similar kind of data only. Okay, and maybe to explain one of the questions that I asked yesterday, like how to create a student array or a string array. The simplest thing is, if you want to create an array of type string, string brackets st equal to new string of, if you want to store 5 elements, you say 5 again. The same way, if there is a class called student where it has an id, name, age or whatever, means basically you have a class called student. Why I'm explaining this example is, like in yesterday's session, in yesterday's exam, there was one more question that we saw, like how to create an array of type student and can store some student objects in it, right? So let us assume that you have a class called student. To create an object for the student, you can say student s1 equal to new student, which means like you are trying to create a student object. Same way, if you want to create multiple student objects, you can say s1, s2, like this. You can create multiple student objects. Now if I want to store all these objects into an array, all I can say is I can create an array of type student. Okay, see here I'm trying to create an array of type int, here an array of type string, and here an array of type student, which means using this student reference array type I can store all the student objects in it. Okay, new I want to store two student objects of 2, I say, and I say stud of 0 equal to s1 and stud of 1 equal to s2, which means I'm trying to store student object 1, student object 2. Okay, don't assume that 1 stands for 1. Maybe let me say this ss and st. So I can store here ss and st, two student objects. So one in a student of 0 and the other one is a student of 1. So this just explains like how to create an array of type any specific object, like a student object or a machine object or whatever. Okay, now the next scenario is here. You can understand that the concept in this scenario is the student is is a class of specific type. So if you create an object of type student, you can store only student objects into it. Let us assume that you have multiple objects like a student, a machine, a tiger, a shape. Like that, you do have multiple objects where you want to store all the objects. Then you cannot create an array of a specific type, which means you cannot create an array of type student and you cannot store a machine object into that array. Why? Because a student array cannot store machine objects into it. Now the next thing, when I say I want to store multiple objects under one place, then is there a scenario where you can do that? Yes, the answer, in Java you can do it in an array by making an object array obj equal to new object of 5. Here I say obj of 0 equal to, here I can store a student object now like ss, and then if I have obj of 1 equal to, if I have a machine object, I can say new machine, a machine object I'm creating and storing it into the obj of 1. But whatever I have created in the highlighted part, that is nothing but using an object array, is not a preferred way of coding. Because there are certain restrictions on top of it, which we will see when we understand generics and other stuff. Okay, so right now let us assume that the highlighted part is not a valid scenario, so we will not go with that, and we will not store multiple objects like this into an object array. Okay, so just a second. Yeah, so Adit, what is your specific question, Adit? Like, do you want to know how to create a student object, or do you want to know how to create a student array and store objects in it? Okay, maybe I'm not sure like what exactly you store object in an array. Okay, yeah, I can do that. So see here, student array stud equal to new student array of 2. So this specific sentence which is highlighted explains that this shows how exactly we can create a student array which can store two objects into it. Okay, now the next question. If I want to store some values into that array, what are the values that I can store? Can I store ABCD? No, I cannot store them. Why? Because the highlighted array expects only a student object into it. So what I can say is std of, so I have two, the size is 2, which means I can access the index 0 and 1. Now at 0th index, when I want to insert a student object, why? Because the student array expects student object. So what is a student object in this highlighted part? In the highlighted part, student SS equal to new student. Understand the scenario. SS is a reference variable of type student, which is pointing to a new student object in the memory. So what is new student? New student is nothing but the actual object that you are going to create in the memory. So at this point what I can say is, I can say new student object. I can write like this. Okay, one second. So into this student array of zeroth index, what I can say is I can store a new student object. I can create a new student object and I can store it. If not, if I already have an object which is readily available which I want to store, then what I can do is I can say SS. I can directly assign SS here, which means into this student array of 0, I'm trying to store this object. Okay, so that object is nothing but it is being referred by SS. So that is the reason why I'm storing SS here, and this object is being referred by ST. So that is what I'm trying to store in this student array. Okay, so is that clear to everyone, like a student array?
Yeah, so like what I did is like I did not write student SS equals new student. So I started down where you have student array stud equals new student. That's where I'm at, and then I did of course 5, and then I went and did std 0 inside the array, and then did equals new student, and then std1 equals new student. Yeah, so I did like 5 of those. Is
So,
that any way of creating student object too, or?
yeah, so whatever you did is perfectly the right thing. So there is
Okay.
nothing wrong in doing that, but the only difference I made here from the program that you wrote is, in my current program, if I want to access this specific object, I can ask always for this index location stud of 0 or 1 or something, and I can retrieve that object. Or I can always look for these specific reference variables. I can get the values. But in your context, you wrote a scenario where you can only get the values from this stud object using the index locations only. That's the only difference. But apart from that, like, everything is good actually.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, yeah, that's good. Now, so the base concept here that we're trying to understand here is, we want to store different types of objects and values at one location. So if I want to do that, then what is the specific scenario that you need to use, or what is the best approach to use that? So can we create, let me take a question here, like string student equal to new string of 5. Can we create like this and assign names? Yeah, you can always do that, Ravi. Like whatever you did is like an array of strings. So since it is an array of strings, you can assign some string values to that. But the reference variable name you wrote is like string array, and you wrote student, which is S as caps. The first thing is that is wrong. Why? Because in general in Java we start only the class names with a capital letter. So that syntax is wrong, and means I don't say it's wrong, but it's not the right way of coding. And the next thing is, when you're trying to say a string, okay, string array, just let's not make it as a student reference variable. If you make it as the reference variable name as student, sometimes means, I don't say like anyone will get confused if they know this proper syntax, but people when they see it, when they see student there, sometimes some people might think what exactly is student and what is a string. So try to give it a different name. Instead of student, give it something like an str or a string or some name. Sorry. But apart from that, like whatever you wrote was perfectly right. Okay. Okay. Now the next scenario that we're going to understand here is like how to uh, understand the concept of collections and what exactly is the benefit that you get out of the collections. Okay. So the basic scenario that we already saw in the previous class, one of the classes was like, what if you want to sort an array, or if you have some data that you want to sort, or if you have a data that you want to eliminate duplicates from, or if you want to have if you have some data, how to count the number of values that are being repeated, or how to maintain everything in an order, or how to reverse the stuff. So all these things, all these features that you are looking for will be present in the collection framework that you are going to see, and they are all pre-built or inbuilt features that are given to you. Okay, so we will understand the topic. Yeah, go ahead with your question, Adi.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I don't want to keep taking you back to the same area thing, but I'm looking at Robbie's statement. So, like the string array of student. Now, in that thing, is that a student object for string? Is that what it says?
Okay, so one second. Okay, so the first thing, like whatever Ravi told for student object. Oh, Ravi, did you create that for a student object? But from your previous comment, what I understood was like you wrote like, can we create like this and assign names? When you said names, I thought that name is a string in Java. So I thought that since you are assigning a name like Raghu, Naveen or Ram or whatever, they can be stored in a string array. So that's what my understanding was, and thought that that was a perfectly right thing. But doing this, a simplest thing, always understand. Can you store a student into an array of type string? The answer is no. So you cannot store a student object into this one. Okay. So the proper syntax is student or stud or std or anything equal to new student of 2 or 5 or whatever. Is that clear, Ravi? We can store age of a student. Okay, don't get confused with the way that we try to store the values into it. So let me take it a simple example here. Okay, maybe before I go into the concept of collections, let me put this concept clear for everyone, and let me go back to the example of arrays. So in the array, let me create a student class. So for a student, I'm going to assign some attributes. So for now, I'm just going to assign only two attributes like private int id and private string name. Like this, you can add as many number of properties as you want, like age, gender, class. Like that, you can add multiple things. Format it. Then I'm just going to write a constructor for easy creation of my objects. Format. Okay. Now the next thing that I'm going to do here is I'm going to create something called a class like demo. So in this demo class, I create a main method. So here I will create five, at least maybe for this scenario I will just create two student objects. Okay, so I say student s1 or ss equal to new student of 1 comma Raghu, and student st equal to new student of 2 comma Naveen. Okay, so now, and in this scenario I do have two student objects. I do have two student objects. One is ss and the other is st, and the values for them is 1 Raghu, 2 and Naveen. Okay, now if I want to create an array of type students which can store student objects, I can say student std equal, sorry, student array std to new student of 3. I can say std of 0 equal to ss, std of 1 equal to st, std of 2 equal to new student of 3 comma ram. Okay, did you notice here, like in this student array I'm trying to store some student objects into them, so at any point of time I can go ahead and assign these student objects into this student array, and if I want to print them, all I can say is this out. I'm just trying to print. That's what happens, Adit. Like, I don't say like the programs that I gave yesterday are tough or difficult. It all depends on how you practice the programs and how you understand the concept. So practicing the programs is really, really important. Okay, so I can say std of 1. What is std of 1 now? Std of 1 is nothing but a student object, means an array of type student which is holding st. So std1 of dot get name. So if I execute this program, did you notice here Naveen is what is being printed? Okay, even in yesterday's class exam, this is what I gave you, like create a student array which can store in some student objects into it. This is what. Okay, so is this clear to everyone, like Ravi or Adi, for everyone in the class, like how to do this? Okay, yeah, that's great, very good. So just make maybe a little bit of practice will boost your confidence, that's all. So now going back to where we left, it's basically trying to understand the collection framework, which we understood, like there are a lot of advantages while using when we try to use these collection framework objects. Now the first thing that I would like to explain here is uh, kind of a high level picture of how exactly the collections framework or the collection hierarchy is laid out. And as I already said, the collection is an interface. Okay, and the most important thing, collection is an interface. Okay, and I hope I remember that in our previous classes we saw this concept, like if there are two classes, class A and class B, the relationship between these two classes will be extends. Okay, the relationship between those two classes will be extends. Class A extends class B. The same way, if you have interfaces, Okay, interface 1 and interface 2. Okay, the relationship between these two interfaces will again be extends. Okay, if you're talking about two similar types like a class and a class, or an interface and an interface, if they are two similar types, and if you want to see the relationship between those two types, it's always extends keyword. Okay, so if the next concept, if you want to see the relationship between two different things, if you're talking about a class and an interface, this is when you say the class implements. Okay, class implements interface. And the next thing that you need to understand here is the class which is implementing this interface will get all the features. You need to uh, implement them in order to make it concrete. If not, the class would be abstract. And that's the next concept. That's the concept which everyone knows. But the other thing is, if you're talking about an interface and a class, there will never be any relationship between them. It neither extends nor implements. Okay, the highlighted part does not have any relationship in that way. But if it is a class and an interface, it is implementing. So please make sure that everyone is clear with these concepts. Two similar types, it always extends. But two dissimilar types, it is implements. Okay, so I hope this concept is clear. So if this is clear, now I'm going back to the concept that I'm trying to explain for the collection framework. So what is a collection? Collection is an interface in the hierarchy, and it is the topmost interface in the hierarchy. Now the next thing that that we're going to see here is collection has three children: a set, a list, and a queue. Set, list, and queue are the children for collection, and all the three are interfaces: a set, a list, and queue. Sorry. So all the three are interfaces. Now, can everyone tell me what is the relationship between a collection and a set? Very good, Bhargavi. Yeah, very good. So the relationship between a set and a collection, or a list and a collection, or a queue and a collection is nothing but the concept. The answer is extends. Okay, they all extend from the collection interface. Now the next question: can you create an object for a set, list, or queue directly? Very good. The answer is no. Why? Because they are all interfaces. Okay. In today's class, the first thing that we'll be looking into is something called as an array list. Okay, an array list. But what exactly is an array list? So now let's let me talk about an interface called a list, and two things out of which array list is most frequently used one. So list is an interface in Java. An array list a concrete is a concrete implementation of list interface. Same thing with vector also, but our main idea will be like understanding the concept of list and array list now. Okay, so an array list is a concrete implementation of list interface. So array list is a class. Now question to everyone: Can I create an object for this class? Array list. Yes or no? Okay, very good. So can someone tell me the syntax for creating an object for this array list? Anyone? Any guess? Array list OB equal to new array list AL equal to new array list. Good, very good. All are right. So what I can say is array list. So maybe just watch out for your syntax that you're trying to write in. Someone wrote like array space list and L as small and all. Array list is a class. Oh, okay. Array list is a class in Java where it is one single class name and it should be like caps. Okay, we should use some caps. Array list AL equal to new array list. Either this you can write, or the preferred way of coding is coding to interfaces like list lst equal to new array list. This is the preferred way of coding. Okay, so any of those things you can create. Okay, now the next question to everyone: array list and list are predefined classes in Java. Since when I say classes, classes are interfaces in Java. Okay, now the question is, to which package they belong to in Java? Any guess? In one of the last sessions I explained this. Util, very good. So the package name that the interface list and the array list class, and not only these things, anything related to collection framework, they are present under java.util package. And all you need to do is, if you are using either an array list or a list in your class, you need to write an import statement. Import java.util means, why I am explicitly explaining this is, when you try to import the class for a list, basically there are two types of lists in Java. One is a list interface under collection framework under java.util package, and the other one is a class which is present under java.awt package. So when you are using a feature of Eclipse to import, maybe let me just write an example and show it to you straight away. So let me create a class called demo. Here I say list lst equal to new array list. Okay, let me import list and array list interface and class respectively. Control Shift O is the shortcut to import, organize the imports or import. So now this is what I'm trying to explain here. So at line number 7, whatever list that I'm trying to use, everyone knows that that is an interface in Java for collection framework. So I need to use this interface which is present in java.util package only, not from the java.awt package. Okay, so I select this. I can just double click there, or I can select that and say finish. So it shows like array list is from java.util and list is also from java.util package. Sometimes when you use this option, the default option given by Eclipse, just maybe go back and check your import statements at times. Because when you import something from an AWT package, things might not show the right way. Means it might show some compilation errors and all those things. Okay, so the first thing, is it clear till this point to everyone? Okay, yeah, very good, very good. So now the next concept. In this scenario, what we saw is like a theoretical part saying that list, array list, and then something called as the collection framework. So let's look into the class hierarchy once so that you can get a better picture of what we are trying to understand. So array list is a concrete implementation, or this is the one which is at the lowest level for which we created an object. So if I go into array list is, see here, it is a class which is present under java.util package, and it is implementing from the list interface. Okay, so if I go back into this list interface, the list interface is again extending from the collection. So when I say collection, the concept here is like this is the parent class, parent interface. So the collection is something which is at the topmost level in the hierarchy, which has certain methods, and the list has certain methods, and all those methods are implemented in array list. Okay, so this is a concrete implementation for these two interfaces, and mostly if I can say like only for list interface that I can say in this current hierarchy. Okay, now the next thing is, okay, well and good, I am able to create an object for array list. Now what exactly I can do with this specific object that I have created, and what are the functionalities or the features that I can get from these things. So let's examine one by one. So the first thing that I want to explain here is like an array list is completely different from an array. Okay, an array list is completely different from an array. Now let me explain one thing. So lst dot, see, this all these things that I'm going to use are inbuilt methods. Okay, lst dot size. So when I print this lst dot size, it actually shows that the size is 0. Okay, the size of an array list is 0. Now question to everyone, understand my question and answer this. If suppose if I create an array of size 0, can I store elements into that array or not? Okay, the answer is no. Why? Because if the array size is 0, we cannot store any elements into it. If it is at least 1, then I can store some value at index location 0. Okay, index location. But if the array itself does not have anything to store, no memory is allocated for it, then you cannot ideally store any value, right? The same scenario, the exact same scenario. Even here it shows that the size of the array list is 0. Okay, that's good. Now the next thing that I'm going to show here is how to add elements into the array list. So to add elements, it's a very easy thing. So all I need to say is lst dot add. So notice here lst.add. So this add method is expecting an object as input. What is the input type for this add method team? Object. Now my question is, what are all the different parameters that I can pass to an add method? A simple example that I would like to remind you is, if suppose if you write a divide method or a multiply method, and for the divide method if you say int num1 comma int num2, the input that you can give to the divide method is two values of type int. Now my question in this context is, what exactly is the input that the add method is expecting? Not list object, wrong. The answer is add method is expecting an object as input. Okay, add method is expecting an object as input. Now, is student an object or not? Okay, the answer is yes. Maybe I'm not sure, like if I had explained a concept like is a and has a in Java, I guess like I missed this concept. Let me just quickly go back and explain a simple concept. So let us assume that you have a class called shape and something called as a circle which extends shape, and square extends shape, and same way anything triangle extends shape, then trapezium extends shape, like that you have multiple classes. Then one more scenario where you have something like a car class and an engine class. Now, okay, two things. Something like is a and has a relationship in Java. When I say is a relationship, just try to understand the syntax that I'm trying to iterate here, trying to say here. Circle is a shape. Square is a shape. Tomorrow, if I have something like an animal and I say tiger extends animal, or cat extends animal, then the thing that I'm going to say here is tiger is a animal, cat is a animal. Okay, the first scenario, is that clear? Okay, good. Now the concept, now understand the statement that I'm going to say and tell me if it is the right way of saying or not. Okay, shape is a circle, shape is a square, animal is a tiger, animal is a cat. Is it right or wrong, the statements that I made right now? Very good, they are wrong. We cannot say a shape as a circle or a shape as a square. We can only say in one direction. It is unidirectional. Like a circle is a shape, or a square is a shape, or a tiger is an animal. The same way, the next thing that I can say here is has a relationship. Let us assume that you have a car class and an engine class. Now, inside the car class, you write some main method or whatever method you write, and inside that you say, now what I'm saying is inside car class, inside car class you write the statement. Now tell me which one of the statements is true, first statement or second statement. The first statement that I'm going to say is car is a engine. The second statement that I'm trying to make is car has an engine. First statement or second statement? Which one is true? Second statement. Awesome. As simple as that, right? Which means in Java, when you're trying to define a relationship between classes, just make sure that you cannot say like, hey, every time I do an inheritance concept or every time I do an extends concept and get a code reusability. That's not always the right scenario. The scenario of extends only holds good when there is an easy relationship between them. Now, is there a relationship between a savings account and an account, like likewise checkings account and an account? Yes or no? If so, what is the relationship between them? Has a or is a? Which one? Is a relationship. So since there is an is a relationship, you can use extends keyword in between them. Okay. Now the next question is, I can say like house. Okay. I have a house class, and for that house, can I say house extends window, or can I say inside a house class I can create a window object and I can use that window? Which one is true? First one or the second one? Extending or creating an object? The second one, right? Creating an object is correct, which means house has a window. So always make sure that whenever you are trying to do a code reusability, or whenever you are trying to do these scenarios, make sure that whether they actually fit into the logical hierarchy or not. Think in those terms and try to code accordingly. Okay. Now the next question that I am trying to explain here is, uh, if whatever concept we did here is good, is and has a. Now I am explaining that a little bit more. Okay, now when I say SC stands for, let us assume that it stands for semicircle. Okay, semicircle or a special circle. Okay, special circle extends circle. Okay, special circle extends circle. Now, can I say the special circle is of type shape, and circle is also of type shape? Means semicircle is a shape and circle is a shape. Can I say that or not? Okay. Yes, it is correct. So now, if you understand or if you can answer my next question, then the next concept would be very easy for you. Now, in all these scenarios, whenever I say is a relationship, or whenever I iterate this statement like semicircle is a shape or circle is a shape, I'm trying to say this because circle is the parent for, shape is a parent for circle and semicircle. For both, shape is a parent, right? So that is the reason why I can say semicircle is a shape and circle is a shape. Yes or no? Okay. Okay. Very good. Now the last and final concept in this one. Understand the statement and say yes or no. Semicircle is of type object, or circle is of type, or circle is a object. Is that right or wrong? Okay, people say yes. What is the specific reason, or why do you say yes? Circle is a part of object. Okay, you can say that, or the simplest solution or the simplest answer for that is every class. Very good, Krishna. Every class in Java. Okay, okay, maybe Krishna, I think maybe even your answer is not the complete one. Let me say this. Every class in Java by default extends from the object class. So who is the parent class of all the classes in Java? Object class. So the circle, the shape, the semicircle, the square, everything, the tiger, the cat, the car, the engine, everything is extending from the circle class. So they are all of type object only. Clear? Yes or no? Yes. Okay. Now the next question. So I do have a method called print shape S, and some logic I will write here. Okay, I'll write some logic here. Understand the method very carefully. The method name is print and it is taking a shape object as input. Now, out of all the classes in this current slide or in this notepad, like you have shape, circle, a semicircle, square, animal, tiger, cat, car, engine. Out of all these method, all these classes, how many classes you can pass as input to this method? All. Wrong. 3. If 3, what are all those 3? Wrong, Shay. Circle and square. Wrong. Circles. Circle, semicircle. Square. Wrong. You're forgetting the basic concept. If a method is expecting an student object as input, the first thing that you need to understand is you can pass a student class object and any of its children. I gave the hint right now. So rethink and answer. Shape, circle, square, round. When I say wrong, even the shape along with the 3. Yeah, good Krishna. That's correct. The answer is 4 classes. What are all those 4 classes? When a method is expecting shape, okay, when a method is expecting shape object as input, then you can pass the shape class object. That's the first one. The second one is you can also pass circle class object. Then you can also pass special circle class object, and you can pass square class object also. Means all the 4 class objects can be passed as input to this print method. Clear or not? Yes. Okay. Very good. Now I'm repeating the same question but in a different way. I say I do have a car class object. Okay, print car S. In this current notepad, how many classes that are allowed to be passed as objects to this print method? 2. Okay, if so, what are the 2? So someone said only car, someone said 1, car and engine. Okay, 1. So if 1 or 2, just write the answer, team. Okay, that's good. So the answer is only 1. Okay, why 1? Why? Because there is no relationship between car and an engine like a parent and a child. Okay, so let me take the previous scenario. In the previous scenario, shape is a parent. Since the method is expecting a parent, it can take in any children also. Okay, since shape is a parent and circle, special circle, square are the children, you can pass all the children to the print method also. But now when I say car, there is no relationship like a parent and child between car and engine. So you can never ever pass an engine object into the print method. You can only pass car object. Clear or not? Okay, so in the same context, I'm going to ask one more question which everyone knows. Means if you're clear with this concept, car and shape example, whatever I explained, whatever I'm going to ask here, everyone will know. So I don't need the count now. Just tell me how, maybe, yeah, tell me your answer. Maybe based on that I can say. So I said print object S is what I wrote here. Now how many classes which are present in this notepad can be passed as arguments to this print method? Someone said 9, someone said all, someone said all. Okay, let me see how many are here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Perfect. Okay, which means 6. Irshad, can you tell me why 6? I'm not sure like if you have missed out counting a few of them, but the concept here is every class here in this notepad, whatever we have written, everything ultimately the parent class will be an object class itself. So you can pass shape, circle, semicircle, special circle, square, animal, tiger, cat, car, engine. Everything can be passed as an input for this print method. Clear to everyone? Yeah, I'm recording. So now, thank you. So now the next thing, answer this question. In this current context, when we are looking into the concept of collection objects, I told that an array list, okay, can store any kind of object out there. Okay, either a student, either a circle, either a machine, special circle, tiger, car, anything can be stored inside an array list is what I told. Now to add elements into that array list, what we did is we created a reference variable lst, and I told lst dot add method. Okay? Now the question here is, what exactly might be the input type of add method, or what exactly an add method might be expecting an input of type? What is the type? Excellent. The answer is object. Okay. Why? Because only if this is object, only in that scenario you can store or you can pass whatever object you want. If not, you cannot. If I restrict it to student like this, I can store only student objects in it. Or if I say like add method is of type int, then I can store only int values into it. Okay. Now going back to Eclipse, I see here, I show you the exact method that we are going to use, lst.add of object. Okay. Now can everyone tell me what are the different inputs that I can pass to this add method one last time? Okay, the answer is all kinds objects to be, yeah, all kinds of objects or values, anything. Okay, very good team. So you can pass objects. Now we will see look into the rest of the methods later, but the first one that I am trying to say is lst.add of 25, some random number I gave. Okay. Now the next thing that I want to show here is, once you add elements into an array, how do you retrieve the elements? Okay, how do you retrieve the elements? Once I explain how to retrieve, then I would like to explain one more concept on top of it. Then I will take some questions. I say 6 out. The value at index location 0 is lst dot, see here, a get method, and what exactly get method is expecting an input of type get is expecting an input of type int. Why? Because array list can be accessed via the index locations, 0th index, first index, second index. So you need to tell which index location value you are looking for. So I say 0th location index. So list dot get of 0. And okay, one more thing, what exactly is the return type from this get method? The get method is giving you back an object. Okay, this is giving you back an object. So now I say get of 0th index. That is what I am interested in. Now let me execute this. So it shows at the 0th index the value is 25. Okay, so this is what I have stored, and let me add one more thing. Okay, maybe that's all for now. So now here the other concept that I'm going to explain here is at line number 12, when I try to print the size of the list, it shows 0, but here at line number 14, when I try to add some elements into it and try to print it, I'm able to store and retrieve, which means even though the list size is 0, still I can add it, which means the size of a list grows dynamically, which means if you are trying to add 100 elements, the list will automatically grow or increment to that size and will fit, or it can store all the 100 values. If you compare the same concept with an array, arrays will never grow dynamically. If you say the size of an array is 10, then the size is fixed, size will not get increased. Okay, now if for an array list, even if the initial size is 0, it's mostly like it can increase dynamically. So as and when you keep adding elements, it increases the size. And here you need to understand one more concept. The concept that I'm trying to explain here is array list is a predefined class in Java. So line number 10 is nothing but creating an object for array list by calling the array list constructor. Okay, now when you are creating an object using a constructor, uh, means there might be scenarios where you can overload the constructor, which means you can create constructors with the different types of parameters given to them. Okay, now when I say different types of parameters given to them, what I can say is like let us assume that if I have a student class, I can create a default constructor, or I can create a constructor which can take in int and name as input, or I can create a constructor which can take int and string and int as input. Like that, I can overload my constructor. The same way, when we can create this array list, there will be something called as different types of constructors where I can use. So here this is one more way of creating an array list, which is taking something else, a collection object as input, which we will see later. And we have used an array list at line number 30, and there is one more thing at line number 21 which says, hey, to this constructor you can pass the initial parameter input, which means like, hey, if you want to create an array list of size 20 initially, you can say at line number 10 that new array list of 20. So what it will do is it will create an array list of size 20. Okay, now let me do one more test here. When I say size as 20, I just told that it will create the size for this array list as 20. So now let me print this one, execute the program. Yeah, I'll take some questions, just a second, Ravi. So now I said 20, but still when I execute line number 12, the thing it shows here is list.size as 0 still. It never shows the size as 20. Okay. Now, the concept here is there are two different terms that you need to understand. The size and the capacity. Okay. The size and the capacity. At line number 10, when I say array list of 20, the actual capacity for an array list is 20, which means an array list can store 20 elements in this scenario. Okay, so when I say 20 elements, don't say that it's only 20 elements, but the base concept is 20 memory locations will be allotted for you. That is the capacity, but still none of the values you have assigned. So the size is still 0. Now let me redo the same statement again. After assigning a value list.add of 25. Now did you notice here initially the size is 0. Once I add an element the size is 1, but the capacity is 20 because I gave here 20. Now the next thing is when I say it grows dynamically in size, let us assume that I have added 20 elements into this LSD list.add, list.add, list.add. Like that I have added 20 elements like this. So lsd.add and 14, like that I have added some 20 elements. Now if I add 21st element, okay, if I add 21st element, that is when the array list resizes itself and increases the capacity so that it can add additional elements. That is when the capacity has increased dynamically. That is what I mean to say. But in the previous scenario of arrays, if you create an array of size 20 and if you want to save the 21st element, it will definitely throw an exception like index out of bounds. But in this scenario it will never ever throw. So understand that a capacity is different from a size, and by default if I don't assign anything, okay, if I don't assign anything, the default capacity of this array list would be like 10, which means by default 10 elements, means an array list will be created so that it can store some 10 elements into it. After that if you add more elements, that is when it starts resizing itself. Okay, so understand the difference between size and capacity. The next thing is how to add elements, that is nothing but using an add method. How to retrieve the elements, that is nothing but using the get method, which takes the index location of the value that you want to see. Okay, so please go ahead with any questions that you have. Okay, that's good, Ravi.
Okay, I got one, Raul.
Please go ahead.
So on the in the array list that you mentioned, it takes 10 as a default.
Mhm.
But even if we don't put anything, I mean, if then like you said, if we put like 20, 22, 25 values in it, it's still gonna keep adding up, right?
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to say here. So at line number 10,
So
yeah, go
so
ahead with the question.
yeah, so like I mean, is it, how important is it that we mention something in there? You
Uh,
know, like instead of the default 10, like maybe
yeah,
like just put 5 or whatever.
that's a good question. So let us assume that is maybe in real time scenario, if I can say this, if you are not sure that how many objects are coming in, you just create a new array list so that if it comes like less than 10 elements, it can store it. But if more than 10 elements comes, it is trying to store more than 10 elements, it can automatically resize itself and it can recreate it. Okay. Now the next scenario is So if you want to say like, hey, instead of resizing and all that stuff, if I know that I am going to store only 28 elements into this array list, okay, the total number of elements that I'm trying to store is only 28. Then you go ahead and say that at line number 10, new array list of 28, which means the capacity will be 28. It will never ever get resized. So if it is getting resized, it means that it is an overhead on the compiler to on the runtime environment to do all that stuff. If you don't want to say like, hey, if you want to reduce the burden, means it's not reducing a burden ideally, but all this happens internally without your notice. Still, the JVM is having an overhead in doing all the resizing, reshuffling, everything. So if you want to avoid that stuff, if you know that you are going to get only 28 elements, then go ahead and do that. Okay. Yeah, but the biggest advantage of these array list or any collection framework objects is like they grow dynamically in size. So in ideal scenarios, we will never know how many input elements that we get. So that's why we use these things. Okay. Yeah, go ahead, Ravi.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead.
Once we reach array list 20, so the size is 20. So once we add one more 21, so the capacity and size will be the same as 21.
No, the capacity and
If
size
you
will not be
print the
21.
size, then
Okay, yeah. So there is a specific formula for increasing the size. I'm not pretty sure like what is the specific formula that it uses to recalculate the size, but I guess like uh, n by 2 into 1, there is some specific formula that it uses, maybe 1.5 times. Yeah, I'm not so sure
okay.
or not so clear of how many times it increases, but there is some formula which it
So then,
uses to resize itself. So the next time again if it fills up, again it uses the same formula to resize, so that's how
then
it happens.
then size is not number of elements then, right? If you add one element, it's going 1.5 times of the one element, right? It's not like the number of elements in the array list, right?
Okay,
When
okay.
size means.
So let me put it this way. Okay, let us assume that the example that I'm trying to give here is like, means this just my this just for your understanding. The initial capacity for this one is 10. Okay, now when line number 17 is executed, the output would be 2. See here. So output would be 2. Why? Because the size of array list is 2, like only 2 elements are present in it. But what is the capacity? The capacity is 10. Okay, capacity is 10, the size is
10.
2.
Yeah.
Okay, capacity is 10 and size is 2. If all the 10 elements or all the 10 locations are occupied, let us assume that, just for an example, it is trying to increase the size by 1.5 times, which means initially the size is like 10, so 1.5 times is nothing but 15. So let us assume that it increases the size with 10 plus 15 locations more, like maybe some 25 more locations. Okay, so means a total of 25 locations are being arranged for you. Now if again that 25 locations are filled up, again it tries to look into like 1.5 times of capacity. So like 25 into 1.5, that many number of things it tries to increase the size of, kind of. Is that clear?
I didn't get that 1.5 times because you're saying that array list capacity becomes 1.5 times like 15 or
Okay,
25, but I want to
so
know size like number of elements.
okay, so let me put it this way. Let us assume that the size is multiplied by 2 every time. Not this, maybe, yeah, my sentence might be confusing here, might be misleading. The capacity. Okay, what is the initial capacity? IC stands for initial capacity. Initial capacity is 10. Now, if size equal to initial capacity, then time to resize. Is everyone clear till this point?
Okay, yeah.
Okay, now how much will be the capacity, or how much will the capacity will increase. So let us assume that we understood like it's 1.5 times. So now what is the initial capacity? It is 10. So 1.5 times the 10 would be like a 15. So the next capacity NC, the next capacity will be, or the next total capacity would be like initial capacity 25
Okay, okay, got it.
plus the new capacity would be nothing but 10 into 1.5. So the final capacity would be like 25 elements it can store. So what is the new capacity now? The new capacity is 25. What is the current size? The current size is still 10 elements. So it can store 15
10.
more elements in it.
Yeah, yeah, I got it actually. I thought size is increasing by 1.5. I
Okay.
thought
No, no, yeah,
its
that's what
capacity is
my
increasing by
statement was
1.5.
misleading. Sorry for that. Okay.
Thanks.
So any doubts or any questions till now? Okay, very good. So let me go ahead with the concept. So the first thing that we saw is like how to create an array list, and then how to store elements, and how to retrieve elements. The next thing is like, maybe I thought like many people might ask, but oh, I did not still show it here. Okay, how to add more objects. So see here, let me say that I do have something called a student object. I'm not going to write any properties or any parameters for now. Machine object, like that, multiple things that I do have. So I say lsd dot add of. I'm trying to add elements. Again, lsd dot add of new student. Did you notice here, team? I'm trying to store some int, some string, some student object, some machine object, and all. Okay, so whatever I'm trying to store here are kind of, so right now I will explain this concept like 25 and 14. They are not primitive types like int. Now they are considered as integers, which are nothing but an object representation of int. But I will explain this concept in tomorrow's class, like the boxing and unboxing concept this is called as, which we'll see in tomorrow's class. But for time being, understand that they are also an there are also some objects. Okay, so I try to store different objects, like at line number 25 and 14 I try to store integer objects, then a string object, then a student object, then a machine object. So did you all get this one, like get this scenario? I'm trying to store multiple objects into the array list object. Okay, that is the first one. Now see here the next scenario. Is very easy to add. Means, do you want to see like, is there a much easier way to add? Oh, okay. I don't see any more easy way. Why? Because see, if it is like, no, means I say no. There is one more thing like, but ideally, see here, add all, and it has like a collection. So which means like at this point you might not clearly understand this one, but even if you have a collection, you need to have some objects, all the objects present in a collection where you can do add all. But I don't feel like this is the best option. If you need to add 100 objects, yeah, this is the way that you need to add 100 objects, all the 100 objects. But when you go to a real-time scenario usage, okay, when you go to a real-time scenario usage where you will be storing all the objects which are coming from the database into these things, like you will never know how many objects will be returned back based on your query, right? So in those scenarios, like you will be using a different approach. In a real-time scenario, you will be taking a different approach, like Hibernate and all that stuff, where things will automatically get mapped to you, so you need not write all this add multiple times. It's just one single statement which can add multiple things for you in real time using a different set of tools. But that thing is way too much out of scope for this current scenario, so just make sure that this is the way that you can add elements into it. Okay, so the first thing that I'm trying to explain here is, I've added some random values. Okay, I've added some random values into this list. But the first thing that I want everyone to notice here is I'm trying to save some values by repeating them again and again in the array list. Why? We will see it in a while. Okay? Why? Because in this current context, we are going to see the first step that we are going to see is how to iterate or loop on the array list. That is the first scenario that we are trying to see here now. And the second scenario is we will try to understand the features of a list. Okay, so when you go back and understand this diagram, the set, list and queue, all the stuff which are given here are for a specific reason. You use list in specific scenarios, we use set in specific scenarios, queue in specific scenarios, which means everything has a special meaning where you can use them. So let's try to understand where we can use them, so that it would be like an easy stuff for you to know like where to use what. Okay, so the two scenarios. Now the first scenario, if I want to print elements which are present in an array list, if I know a specific index location, I can always say if I want to print this Naveen, I can say 0, 1, 2, 3. So if the index location is 3, so I can say lst dot get of 3, where it can give me the value Naveen. Okay, but what if I want to print all the elements in an array list in one single shot, or what if I want to loop on all these elements? Then what are the different ways that I can do? So there are multiple ways that you can do, starting from the simplest for loop example that we know this out. So here I say for int I equal to 0, the basic for loop that I'm trying to write. And now how many times I need to iterate it? I less than lst dot size. Okay, and I plus plus. And if I want to print the elements out, the values in the one second, in the array list at index location I or I'm trying to print two dynamic values at one time. LST dot get of I. Please let me know if you don't understand this syntax that I've written right now. The values in the array list at index location, why I wrote I is nothing but it tries to print the index location 0, 1, 2, 3. And now if I want to print the values in this array list, so all I do is take is this variable name lst dot get of I. Initially when the I value is 0, it prints lst dot get of 0, then lst dot get of 1, then lst dot get of 2, like that. That is what it prints. Okay. So now if I run this notice here, the scenario it shows here is the values at array index location 0, 0 is 25, see here 25, 14, S1 is null, so null, Naveen, then null, then it shows the student object, then it shows the machine object, then Naveen, Raghu, 14, null, null, 14, and student object. So the first thing that you need to notice here is every object every object that is being given as input to this array list is being shown here. Okay, which means the first feature that you need to understand in an array list is the elements in an array list are ordered. Okay, I'm trying to explain the features of a list or an array list. So elements are ordered. So now the next thing that I want every one of you to understand here is ordering is different from sorting. Ordering is not sorting. So if I say, hey, the order in which I give the input is 25, 14, 21, Naveen, like S1 and all, if I get the output also in the same order, then I say ordering. But if I say, if my input is 5, 4, 3, 7, 11, 9, 10, like that, if I give 100 numbers randomly, and if my output is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 till 100, then I say it is not ordering, it is sorting. Okay, I hope the difference between ordering and sorting is clear to everyone. Yes or no? Okay, that's good. So that is the reason why the elements in a list are ordered, not sorted. Ordered means the way in which I add the elements is exactly the same way in which I get back the elements. So why I am stressing upon this point is when you try to see the concept of a set, set is not ordered. Okay, set is not ordered means if you give the input as 1, 5, 3, then you might get the output as 135 or 531 or 513, like that. You can get some random outputs from a set. So set is not ordered, but list is ordered. Okay, that's the first feature of a list that you need to observe. So if there is a business requirement which says that, hey, I will give you some 100 elements as input, you need to store all the 100 elements in the same order in which I give you. Then you use a list. But if they say like, hey, you can use in you can store and print it in any order, I don't care, then you can use set. The next feature is if you see the output, it can print the duplicate values also. Even if I'm trying to rewrite Naveen, Naveen, Naveen 3 times, it is printing Naveen every time I have written. The same way 14, the same, right? The same way the student object. I have written the student object here and also here, which means even though if there are any duplicate entries, still the list can store duplicate values. Stores duplicate values, which means duplicate entries are allowed into a list. So the same old scenario. The business requirement, if it says that I need to maintain the order of input and I need to store all the duplicates, then use a list. If the business requirement is, hey, I don't want, I'm not interested in the order at all, but the first thing that I'm interested in is eliminate the duplicates. If that is the business requirement, then you will go with a set. Why? Because set eliminates the duplicates. So when I say set eliminates the duplicates, when you try to understand the same old scenario with a set, set will never ever repeat the same thing twice. If Naveen and Naveen and Naveen, if it is given as 3 times in a set, I'm talking, it only prints Naveen once for you. Okay? That's one thing. And the next thing that you need to observe in the output is like a null value. So null is being repeated again and again, which means the same old concept. Can store duplicate values or multiple null values also. Multiple null values can also be stored in a list, but if you talk about a set, set can store only one null value, and but there is a clause or an exception scenario for that. We will see that later in tomorrow's class about set. Okay, but till here is the concept clear, like the features of a set and how to create an array list. Sorry, not about a set, I'm sorry, the features of a list, how to create an array list, how to add elements and how to retrieve elements, and the basic iteration. Okay, okay, that's good. So the next concept that maybe it is like the next level of iteration, right? Because whatever iteration we did at line number 35 is not a preferred way of iterating over the collection objects. There is a different way, means two ways that we use, which might have a little bit of time and understanding. So maybe I will try to explain the concept in tomorrow's class. Okay. So any doubts or any questions in today's class? Okay, then I'm stopping the recording.